Thank you. The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman, the ranking member of the committee, the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Comer, is now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, Republicans voted against this American Rescue Plan because we knew that when the government prints more money, you're going to have more inflation. Now, we will all be able to celebrate projects that were funded with this that were beneficial. But there are going to be many, many horror stories about wasted money. And I'll get to that in just a moment. But Mr. Jaffe, I want to talk about another bill, because when you look at this $1.9 trillion that we're talking about here, this came on the heels of trillions of dollars passed for stimulus at the end of the Trump administration during the beginning of COVID. And then after this, another several trillion-dollar infrastructure bill. Now, Mr. Jaffe, historically, from my studies in history and economics, the government passes spending, the government to stimulate the economy. But we had an economy, and Republicans kept saying this, that was on fire from stimulus that had been appropriated from Congress prior to this. So we're historically, wouldn't you say that if and when the government stimulated the economy, it would be at a time when the economy was sluggish and at a time when there was a high unemployment rate? Did we have a high unemployment rate when this $1.9 trillion was passed? In other words, do you think that this $1.9 trillion was needed to stimulate the economy, or I guess, and also how much do you think this contributed to the current inflation we're seeing now?
I think it's the direction that you have to look at. So employment was rising rapidly at the time that this was enacted. So it really wasn't necessary. Now, certainly unemployment was still higher than it was before the pandemic, but because the economy had already developed ahead of steam, we didn't really need this. And to your point about the infrastructure bill, Congressman, I just want to point out that a lot of the wins that have been presented here have to do with state and local governments spending money on broadband, but that's also in the infrastructure bill as well. So you have a lot of duplication of effort across these bills, and naturally you're going to have a lot of waste.
The reason that I was concerned about an infrastructure bill when we passed it, I don't feel like we're going to get a lot of infrastructure. I don't feel like we're going to get a lot of roads and bridges for the amount of money we're spending, because we have massive inflation right now. What the administration should have done is try to get inflation under control and then see where the government needed to step in to help with infrastructure. So I think the American people are going to be very disappointed at the end of the day when they see how little infrastructure is going to be constructed, considering the massive amount of money that was spent. Now, I want to ask some questions of my good friend, Judge Gary Moore, in Boone County, the fastest growing county in the state of Kentucky, a real success story. I have to respond again to Mr. Conley. I have a lot of respect for Mr. Conley, but sometimes he competes with Adam Schiff for the most misinformation in a single day as a member of Congress. But one thing that he was trying to compare was this spending to relief funds. And as you know, Judge Moore, we had terrible tornadoes, 3 different tornadoes on the same night, went through my whole congressional district from one end to the other. But we get calls daily from county judge executives and mayors in those counties asking if they can use some of this money we're talking about today, the state and local money, for tornado relief. And we are trying to get the answer from the Treasury Department, and all they respond to us is with a link to frequently asked questions. And that's not one of the questions, can you use this money for tornado relief? So can you talk about if you've had any challenges in Boone County, or have you heard from any county judges, not just in Kentucky, but in other parts of America that have had trouble getting answers from Treasury about how to properly spend this money?
Early in the process, yes. The rollout from Treasury took longer than we had hoped. At NACO, what we did, we basically created a list of frequently asked questions. We assembled those because a lot of them were the same across the country. We would submit those questions to Treasury, and by the end, once they got things stood up, we were getting answers back usually in 24 to 36 hours of yes or no, or here's how you might. We've posted those on our website for our county members. So there are still frustrations at times in some of those areas that are gray. We have been told that the federal match for FEMA, that local ARPA funds can be used for a local match. And that is one thing that we have gotten answers for. The flexibility with the $10 million for lost revenue, we feel like that is going to be helpful to those counties that need this flexibility. What we did with the funds, of course, was broadband is our main expenditure. And we have found that there were areas of our county that would not have had broadband if not for these funds. It's something we knew was important, but there just wasn't funding within our budget to do it. This provided gap funding to be able to make that happen.
And it's a good thing that money went directly to you and you didn't have to funnel it through Kentucky Wired. So, or you never would have gotten a penny of that. But again,
frustrating.
thank you, Judge Moore, and Madam Chair, I yield back.